The jealous best friend who envied my performance at the Paris concert hall suddenly showed up at my house. This time, I pretended not to be home and waited for her to leave. Despite my mango allergy, I devoured 10 mangoes in a frenzy and ended up in the ICU. In my past life, the flight I was on was hijacked by criminals who live-streamed their demands for an exorbitant ransom from my parents. The parents sold all their assets to gather the ransom, and the fiancé set aside past grievances to desperately find a way. Yet, my best friend shared the live stream link across the internet, slandering the billionaire's daughter for staging the kidnapping to escape the wedding. In the end, I was brutally executed by the kidnappers in front of everyone at 30,000 feet. This time, lying in a hospital bed, I smiled as I watched the breaking news of the hijacking on TV. Do you have any drug allergies? Speak quickly. The doctor's voice was urgent as they prepared some medication in hand. With all my strength, I struggled to squeeze out a few words. Mango. Allergy. As soon as the words were spoken, the nurse beside me suddenly erupted. Are you out of your mind, eating so many mangoes despite being allergic to them? Recalling the scattered mango peels on my table just moments ago, the nurse's eyes were filled with disbelief. Do you want to die? I wanted to explain, but my lips were too swollen to speak. The nurse continued scolding. Now look, full-blown anaphylactic shock, blood pressure dropping, difficulty breathing. Are you happy now? The doctor quickly administered an adrenaline injection to me. Hurry up, any later and it'll be too late. The ambulance sped up, and I could feel my body swaying with each sharp turn. The nurse muttered while working, I've seen people courting death, but never like this, knowing you're allergic yet still eating it like there's no tomorrow. My vision began to blur, but I could still hear her complaints. The doctor stopped her. Enough talking. Focus on the rescue, but the nurse was clearly furious. Doctor, tell me, isn't this just pure troublemaking? The emergency department is already swamped, and now we have to deal with this self-inflicted nonsense. I wanted to tell them I didn't do it on purpose, but my tongue was swollen like a balloon, and I couldn't utter a single word. I recalled crouching in the corner of the attic just moments ago, peering through a crack at the scene downstairs. My best friend Zoe Sue was stealthily pushing open my bedroom door. She picked up my wallet and carefully pulled out a piece of paper and a small notebook from inside. I held my breath and waited until the sound of her footsteps completely faded before descending from the attic. The living room was so quiet that only the ticking of the wall clock remained. I walked straight to the refrigerator and opened the freezer compartment. 10 golden little mangoes were hidden deep inside. I took out the first one, peeled off the skin, and began eating it in big bites. The overly sweet juice burst open in my mouth. 1. I held up the eaten mango peel toward the surveillance camera in the living room. I took one bite after another, until I had eaten the second, the third, the fourth. My throat began to itch. The fifth, the sixth, the seventh. My tongue started to swell, and my breathing became rapid. The eighth, the ninth. My chest felt as if something was blocking it, the air growing thinner and thinner. Before I could swallow the last piece of mango, I pressed the emergency call button I had prepared in advance. Help! I collapsed to the ground. My consciousness beginning to fade. In the ICU, I was covered in tubes. The blinding fluorescent light made it hard to open my eyes. A breathing tube in my throat left me unable to speak. My phone vibrated violently on the nightstand. In the loving family group chat, Mom's avatar kept flashing as she sent out one anxious message after another. Zoe, quick, look at this. What happened here? She tossed out a live stream link. With trembling fingers, I clicked to open it. The screen displayed a scene inside the airplane cabin, which was in complete chaos. A girl with a pink scarf identical to mine wrapped around her face was being held at gunpoint by the kidnapper. Her figure was almost identical to mine. Dad, Mom, save me. The girl was crying her heart out, her voice echoing through the cabin. I'm Zoe. I don't want to die. The moment I heard that voice, I knew it was Zoe Sue, but at this moment, she was clearly using my identity to cry for help. There were no new messages in the group chat for a long time. I could imagine my parents desperately selling off assets to raise money at that moment. With trembling hands, I dialed my father's number. My voice hoarse and weak, Dad, I'm in the hospital. 20 minutes later, my parents and my fiancé, Griff Gu, rushed to the ICU at top speed, seeing my entire body swollen and unrecognizable. The three of them froze instantly. Mom covered her mouth, tears instantly welling up. Zoe, how did this happen to you? Griff Gu rushed forward first, his face filled with heartache and anxiety. He wanted to grab my swollen hand but was afraid of hurting me. Zoe, what happened? With great difficulty. I raised my hand and pointed at the live stream playing on his phone, making hoarse sounds in my throat. The nurse walked over and explained to them that I had nearly died from severe laryngeal edema caused by a mango allergy. The patient knowingly ate 10 mangoes in one go despite being aware of the allergy. The nurse's tone carried reproach. We almost couldn't save you. My parents stared at me in shock, immense confusion following their overwhelming fear. Dad asked with a trembling voice. Zoe, why would you do this? I struggled to point at Griff Gu's phone screen. On the live stream, the kidnapper was shouting at the camera, Mrs. Parents, I know you're the richest family. You must transfer 1 billion within an hour. Otherwise, I'll kill your daughter. The father pointed at the live broadcast screen. Since you're here, then who is on the plane? At that moment, the kidnapper's satellite phone in the broadcast suddenly rang. After listening to the caller, he violently yanked off the pink scarf covering the girl's face and roared furiously. Who the hell are you? Zoe Sue's terrified face was clearly revealed to the global audience. Her parents and Griff Gu were instantly petrified upon seeing Zoe Sue's face. Mom's eyes widened. This is Zoe Sue. Griff Gu's expression darkened, clenching his fists. Why would she impersonate Zoe? Zoe Sue cried even harder in front of the camera. No, I really am Zoe. Who else could I be? Zoe could be Lynn Zoe. Or it could be Zoe Sue's Zoe. The kidnapper kicked Zoe Sue. Dare you lie to me? Lynn Zoe is in the hospital right now. Do you take me for a fool? Zoe Sue was kicked to the ground, crying out in despair. I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. I looked at the kidnapper on the live stream with a face full of shock. How did he know I'm at the hospital right now? My father was trembling all over with anger. Sue, hi, your daughter has been kidnapped, and instead of figuring out a solution, what are you doing blaming my family? A sharp, wailing cry came from Zoe Sue's father over the phone. Brother Lynn, my Zoe only went to Paris because your daughter invited her. Now she's been kidnapped in your daughter's place. Your family can't just turn a blind eye. That ransom, it should be your responsibility to pay. Disgusting. Truly redefined my understanding of shamelessness. My father was so angry that his vision went black, and my mother quickly supported him. On the live broadcast, Zoe Sue's performance continued. She cried pitifully, tears streaming down her face, and said to the kidnappers, Zoe and I are the closest of sisters. Uncle Lynn and Auntie treat me like their own daughter. They will definitely save me. They will. She raised her face, her tear-filled eyes gazing at the camera. Uncles and aunties, I beg you, save me. I don't want to die. Griff Gu, brother, please persuade the uncles and aunties. You don't want to see me die either, do you? I watched the farce on the screen with cold eyes. In my past life, that's exactly how it was. Desperately calling for help from everyone at an altitude of 10,000 meters. Yet all I got in return was Zoe Sue broadcasting the live link across the internet, leaving me to be slandered, cyberbullied, and ultimately brutally murdered. This time, it's her turn. As I was reveling in the thrill of revenge, I caught a glimpse of Griff Gu beside me out of the corner of my eye. He stared intently at Zoe Sue crying and screaming on the screen, a flicker of pity flashing across his face. Then came the panic of a disrupted plan. My heart sank abruptly. He quickly noticed my gaze, his eyes darting toward me in alarm before immediately masking it. Zoe, your best friend, she's really pitiful. He held my hand, his palm cold and clammy with sweat. After all, she took the disaster for you. Maybe we should still try to save her. $1 billion isn't something your family can't afford. I stared at him without saying a word. My usually composed and profit-driven fiancé, at this moment, he would actually say such foolish words for an outsider. My mother heard it too. She frowned and pushed Griff Gu's hand away. Griff Gu, have you lost your mind? Why on earth should we save her? My father even snatched the phone directly and shouted at the kidnappers in the live feed, "Look carefully, that's not my daughter, you've got the wrong person, we don't have $1 billion, and we won't give you a single cent. If you have the guts, go find her real parents and ask them for it." With those words, he fell silent. In the live broadcast, Zoe Sue's face, which had been crying so pitifully that it tugged at my heartstrings, instantly turned as pale as paper. The kidnapper's gun muzzle pressed even deeper against her temple because of my father's words. I turned my head, wanting to see Griff Goo's reaction, but in the hospital room, his figure was already gone. I yanked the 4-needle from my hand, a sharp pain shooting through me as blood instantly gushed out. "Hey, miss. You can't get out of bed." The nurse's exclamation was left behind as I rushed away. Staggering, I dashed out of the ward into the empty corridor. From the men's restroom at the end of the hallway, faint, suppressed growls could be heard. Holding my breath, I inched closer step by step. Through the crack in the door, I caught a glimpse of Griff Goo's profile. Twisted with rage, he was clutching his phone tightly, roaring at the person on the other end of the line. "We must save the people on the plane." I silently returned to the hospital room. My parents' anxious gazes followed me, but I simply spoke calmly. My voice soft yet enough to drown out Zoe Sue's wailing on the TV. "Dad, mobilize all the Lin family's connections." My gaze returned to the live broadcast, where Zoe Sue was tearfully proclaiming the deep sisterly bond between us. "Zoe, I cut him off. Contact all media platforms. I want this live stream pinned at the top of every platform. I want everyone to see how my best friend impersonated me to board that plane." Her father understood instantly, without another word. He stepped aside to make a call, push the heat to the max for me. Soon, the exact same situation as in my previous life appeared once again, only this time, the protagonist was someone else. Rich bestie friendship was actually scripted. Scheming bestie took my place on the flight. Zoe Sue has made her bed and must lie in it. Zoe Sue has been completely placed on the pyre of public opinion. Countless mouths are discussing her, calling her scheming, saying she deserves it, that her death would be no loss. Yet some of her former music fans continue to speak up for her. Zoe Sue, unaware of what was happening online, was still crying and shouting with all her might. At that moment, Griff Gu pushed the door open and entered. He saw my father continuously issuing commands, his expression somewhat hesitant, but he couldn't say anything. He could only walk over to me and force an approving smile. "You did the right thing, Zoe." I looked up, tears falling without warning. "Griff Gu, am I a complete failure as a person?" He froze. "What is it about me that's so lacking, that Zoe Sue would treat me this way? That performance opportunity in Paris, I worked so hard to win it fair and square. Why did she steal my ticket information? Why did she pretend to be me?" My sobs grew louder, each word a sharp accusation that left Griff Gu speechless. "If she took all that, fine. But how could she also steal the birthday gift you were going to give me?" The words had barely left his lips. On the live broadcast, the kidnapper roughly yanked Zoe Sue. Her slender wrist happened to be raised. On it was unmistakably the star and moon bracelet that Griff Gu had personally told me was custom-made for me. One of a kind, at that moment. The air in the entire hospital room froze. The color drained completely from Griff Gu's face. The look in my parents' eyes, which had just moments ago shown heartache for me, instantly turned sharp. Their gazes piercingly fixed on Griff Gu. "Griff Gu, how did that bracelet end up on Zoe Sue's wrist?" My father's voice was like winter ice, striking directly at Griff Gu's core. Griff Gu's eyes darted nervously between me and the screen. "Uncle, I don't know either," he stammered in defense. "Maybe it was Zoe Sue, she took it herself." "Yes, she must have stolen it." "Stolen," my mother sneered, pressing forward step by step. "Something that's globally limited in quantity hasn't even reached Zoe yet. Where could she, Zoe Sue, possibly steal it from? Or are you saying you've already given the gift to her?" Griff Gu was backed into a corner. "What exactly is your relationship with Zoe Sue?" The panic in his eyes was gradually replaced by a desperate madness. "No, Auntie, the one I've always loved is Zoe." He suddenly grabbed my hand with such force that it nearly crushed my bones. "Zoe, believe me, I have no relationship with her. The kidnappers must have made a mistake. The person they really wanted to kidnap is Zoe Sue." With a loud bang, my mind went completely blank. What did he just say? The person the kidnappers really wanted to abduct was Zoe Sue. My father also caught the loophole in his words and pushed him away from me. "What do you mean by that? How do you know who the kidnappers really intended to target?" Griff Gu suddenly realized what he had said, his lips trembling, unable to utter another word. He turned his head and looked at me with an almost pleading gaze. Zoe Sue, she told me before that she envied us, really liked that bracelet, and just wanted to borrow it to wear for a photo. I thought she was your good friend, so I just wanted to make you happy. I really didn't know this would happen." I didn't speak. I just stared at him, watching as he shifted all the blame onto Zoe Sue. Tears fell one by one without warning. No sound, no sobs, only silent sliding. This silent accusation was more powerful than any questioning. Seeing me cry, my father immediately snapped at Griff Gu in a cold voice. "Griff Gu, let go of my daughter." Griff Gu jerked his hand away as if burned. At that moment, chaos suddenly erupted in the live broadcast footage. It was then that the kidnapper finally noticed the online discussions. Zoe Sue, seeing that she couldn't get any response from our family, also fell silent. The pressure of public opinion online made the kidnappers increasingly agitated. They began shoving other hostages with their rifle butts, causing chaos at the scene. One of the kidnappers suddenly lunged at Zoe Sue. Zoe Sue let out a scream and instinctively pushed a fellow Chinese female passenger next to her hard toward the kidnapper. The woman staggered and stumbled right into the gun's muzzle. This detail was captured crystal clear by the high-definition live broadcast camera. Though it lasted only a second, it was seen by countless eyes. The live stream's barrage of comments instantly froze. A few seconds later, it erupted overwhelmingly. "Did she just push someone? Am I seeing things? She pushed the person next to her to use as a shield. Holy shit, is this the musical genius we've been feeling sorry for?" Zoe Sue's fans also started publicly unfollowing her. I looked at my dad. He immediately understood, walked aside and made another phone call. "Find out who that female passenger who was pushed is. Zoom in on this video clip for me. Magnify it indefinitely. I want the entire internet to know what kind of good friend my precious daughter has made. #Zoesu pushes someone #. This hashtag surged to the top of trending searches at a terrifying speed. Griff Gu stared at the constantly updating messages on his phone, his expression inscrutable. He also said to us, "Uncle and Auntie, what you're doing is absolutely right. A shameless woman like her should be taught what social death means." Zoe Sue was trembling with fear during the live broadcast, while Griff Gu wore a resolute and righteous expression. A stark contrast formed right before our eyes. The hijacking incident was quickly resolved under the swift intervention of Interpol. All the criminals were apprehended. It turned out they had only brought one real gun. It was the same one that had been pressed against my head last time. Zoe Sue was also brought back to the country as a survivor and a hero, under countless flashing lights. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen and red, looking utterly terrified. Yet she didn't go to her parents, who had come to pick her up. Instead, she rushed straight to the camera of the largest media outlet. "Where is Zoe? Is Lin Zoe okay? We had clearly agreed to go to Paris together. Why didn't I see her on the plane?" She faced the camera, her voice choked with sobs, every word trembling with tears. "When the kidnappers took people, I was so scared. I feared if they couldn't find Zoe, they might harm other innocent people. That's why I pretended to be her. She never mentioned a word about taking my identity and boarding the plane in my place. Instead, she turned the tables, implying that I was the one who chickened out at the last moment, and that it was she who had to step forward to protect everyone on board, sacrificing herself." The online sentiment immediately became divided. "So that's how it is. I was wondering how Zoe Sue could impersonate someone. She's truly remarkable. So is Lin Zoe too scared to show up? How laughable. Don't talk nonsense." Upstairs, the heiress must have other reasons. "Come on, the facts are right in front of us. What's there to whitewash?" Zoe Sue took advantage of the public opinion and contacted the concert organizers who were supposed to be mine the very next day. At the same time, Griff Gu came to my hospital bed once again. He brought a bouquet of lilies, his smile filled with exhaustion. Zoe, you've suffered so much. Don't pay attention to what's online, it's all nonsense. But, he placed the flowers by the bedside, then abruptly changed the subject. Zoe Sue really made a huge sacrifice this time. Everyone outside is praising her now, which doesn't reflect well on your reputation. How about letting her take the Paris performance this time? It's our way of making it up to her. I looked at him, at this man who kept professing his love for me. The air in the hospital room was terrifyingly still. My parents' faces had darkened to the point where you could practically see the water dripping from them. I smiled instead. I looked at Griff Gu and nodded with great magnanimity. All right. She deserves it. Griff Gu visibly relaxed, his smile becoming much more genuine. I knew Zoe, you're the most generous and kind-hearted. After he left, the smile on my face faded bit by bit. I picked up my phone and clicked on the video that had been forwarded by countless people, yet blurred by just as many. I found the clearest original version. On the screen, Zoe Sue screamed in terror, then without hesitation, forcefully pushed a fellow panicked Chinese female passenger toward the gunman's barrel. The action was swift. Without a moment's hesitation, my father walked up to me with a meaningful expression. That female passenger turned out to be the daughter of DuPont, the sponsor of the Paris performance. She hit her head when Zoe Sue pushed her down and soon fell unconscious after returning home. Now she's still in the intensive care unit. Without saying a word, I directly sent this unedited video to Mr. DuPont's private email. For the email subject, I only wrote 4 words, your daughter. After finishing all this, I turned off my phone and lay back in bed. For an entire week, I didn't look at any news, until my attending physician walked into my hospital room with a complicated expression, holding a newspaper. The front page headline was about Zoe Sue. She stood on the stage of the Paris concert hall, wearing exquisite makeup and a haute couture gown, radiating brilliance with her smile. The headline read, Prodigy Zoe Sue plays heavenly melodies in Paris. The doctor placed the newspaper by my bedside and sighed. Zoe, try to look on the bright side. I remained silent. At this moment, my phone rang. An unfamiliar French number. I answered the call. He spoke in perfect French. Miss Lynn Zoe, I am DuPont. I just saw a very interesting video. Mr. DuPont, sponsor of the Paris concert, held an emergency press conference, accusing hero girl Zoe Sue of deliberately pushing someone. In the video, Mr. DuPont's eyes were bloodshot, and his voice was hoarse. The woman beside him had already fainted from crying. My daughter is still lying in the intensive care unit, her life hanging by a thread, and the murderer who pushed her to take the bullet is on stage enjoying glory that doesn't belong to her. Mr. DuPont produced the unedited raw footage. In the footage, Zoe Sue's terrified face and her action of pushing aside the girl beside her without hesitation were magnified and frozen indefinitely. Zoe Sue pushing people Zoe Sue get out of the entertainment industry DuPont's daughter The entries spread like a virus, instantly dominating the charts. Public opinion has completely reversed. The heroic girl who was in heaven just a second ago was cast into hell the next. I turned off the news, unhurriedly took a photo of the indwelling needle in my arm, along with the critical condition notice that read mango allergy, severe shock. I sent them out together. The caption consists of just one sentence. Thank you all for your concern. I'm still alive. No selling of misery, no accusations. The so-called substitution for me, the so-called great sacrifice, has become a complete joke. The internet was completely paralyzed. Angry netizens flooded into Zoe Sue's social media platforms under all her previously glamorous selfies. Vicious comments were now hanging like a curtain. Murderer, get out of China. What a scheming bitch. Taking advantage of others' kindness. You really deserve to die. I even spoke up for you before. I must have been blind. Soon after, all her past was thoroughly exposed. The so-called socialite was nothing more than the daughter of an ordinary music studio owner. The so-called luxury goods were all counterfeit replicas. Even her proud musical talent was exposed as being ghostwritten by hired writers. The brands that once adored her were quick to issue termination statements, afraid to be associated with her in any way. On outdoor billboards, the advertisements she endorsed were hastily taken down overnight and replaced with promotions for infertility treatments. I was thoroughly engrossed when Griff Goo's call came through. His tone was casual as usual, but I could tell he was doing his utmost to suppress his panic. "I saw what happened to your close friend online. Has it affected you at all? After all, you two used to be so close." I remained silent. On the other end of the line, he seemed to realize he had asked too much and quickly changed the subject. "Zoe, how has your recovery been going lately?" I chuckled lightly and hung up the phone. Then, I took a screenshot of a document and sent it to a familiar media outlet, Zoe Sue's contract signing with GU Group's entertainment company. The signing date was set for the very next day after the hijacking incident. Since Griff GU wants to protect her, I'll make sure they both perish together. On the day the news broke, the stock price of GU Group plummeted, losing billions in a single day. Griff GU was overwhelmed by the company's shareholders and had no time left to care for his true love. Lying in the hospital bed, I looked out the window. The sky was so blue. The phone rang again. "It's Zoe Sue." I hung up directly and contacted someone else instead. I hosted a dinner party. Late at night, Zoe Sue's family, Griff GU and his parents, along with major media outlets, all arrived. Zoe Sue was dressed in a white evening gown, and as soon as she entered, she took my arm, her face wearing just the right amount of timidity and gratitude. "Zoe, thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know what to do." Griff Goo's parents also came over. Aunt GU held my hand and spoke earnestly. "Good child. It's all in the past now. Griff GU will treat you well from now on." I raised my glass with a gentle and graceful smile. "Today, I've invited everyone here to express my gratitude to the friends who stood by me during my most difficult times." My gaze settled on Zoe Sue, especially my dearest friend, Zoe Sue. Zoe Sue immediately showed a tearfully grateful smile. Griff GU also breathed a sigh of relief. The media's flashlights focused on us. I put down the wine glass and took out a small, exquisite pen from my handbag. I also prepared a special gift for Zoe. I pressed the play button on the recorder. "Mom, don't worry. That idiot Lynn Zoe even told me the concert tickets are reservation-based. Personal information is only registered at the airport when you present the tickets." Zoe Sue's sharp and triumphant voice instantly made everyone hear clearly. The color drained from Zoe Sue's face inch by inch. "So what if she's the darling of heaven? She's foolish enough to leave such an important thing lying around on the table. Once we reach Paris, I'll take her place on stage, and all the glory will be mine." And Griff GU, I got him long ago. He said it himself. He loves me. Wouldn't even think of touching Lynn Zoe. Everything she has, her talent, her man, her family background. Soon, it'll all be mine. On the recording, she laughed wildly, the sound shrill and venomous. Slap, a sharp crack. Griff Goo's father trembled with rage and slapped Griff GU hard across the face. "Idiot." Griff Goo's mother collapsed into her chair, pointing at Zoe Sue, unable to utter a word. Everyone's gaze scrutinized Zoe Sue without restraint. Zoe Sue's parents were experiencing such an utterly humiliating scene for the first time. Their faces turned ashen, wishing they could vanish into the ground on the spot. As for Zoe Sue, she stood there in a daze, as if her soul had been drained away. In my previous life, because I was at home, she never had any chance to take the plane ticket that belonged to me. But this time was different. I had made all the preparations in advance. In this lifetime, under her terrified gaze, I step by step approached her, bent down, and leaned close to her ear. In a voice only the two of us could hear, I whispered with a smile, "Zoe, you truly are my best friend." Then, I straightened up, under the astonished gazes of everyone. She picked up that glass of crimson red wine from the table, and splashed it fiercely onto her pale face. "You, how dare you?" "Ah!" Zoe Sue completely broke down and began screaming hysterically. The wine trickled down her hair, red wine, white dress, leaving her utterly disheveled. The banquet hall erupted into chaos. Reporters surged forward like madmen, their camera flashes nearly blinding. The day after the banquet, the PR statement from GU Corporation was everywhere. Between the lines, there is nothing but regret for misjudging someone and profound apologies for the grievances my family has suffered. They intensified their condemnation, denouncing Zoe Sue's misconduct and betrayal of the GU family's trust. In the end, they outright announced the complete termination of the engagement with my family and the cancellation of the contract with Zoe Sue. The GU family severed all ties with everyone, leaving themselves completely untainted. Uncle GU is a wise man. Between the reputation of the GU family and his son, he would always choose the former. According to the news, Griff GU was packed up by his father overnight and kicked out of the GU family mansion. All his bank cards were frozen, and his assets were wiped clean. The once privileged heir of the GU family was left with nothing overnight. I have no interest in knowing his fate. As for Zoe Sue, she called me countless times. I didn't answer a single one. She then kept trying with unfamiliar numbers, persistent as an unshakable fly, until a text message came in. Zoe, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Everything was just me being blinded by greed. My mom had a heart attack and needs money for the hospital. Please, for the sake of our past relationship, help me. Griff GU is no good person either. I was completely fooled by him. Aren't you supposed to be the kindest? I looked at that text message and laughed. Then I dragged all her contact information into the blacklist. The world has quieted down. A few days later, while I was flipping through the sheet music, an unknown number sent me a photo. In the photo, Zoe Sue's mother lay on the hospital bed, with an oxygen tube inserted, her face haggard. Immediately after, another text message followed. Zoe, Auntie knows Zoe wronged you, but she was also deceived by Griff GU. He ruined her. Please. For the sake of Auntie who's about to pass, save her. Still the same old excuses. It's always someone else's fault, always playing the victim. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then, I sent it along with the text message screenshot to a blogger who specializes in exposing fraudulent charities. Hello. Someone is using patient photos for scams. Please verify. A few days later, the invitation to the Paris Music Hall was delivered to me again. This time, it truly belongs to me. I stood at the center of the stage, the spotlight shining on me, with every seat in the audience filled. This time, I finally got to showcase my abilities in the place I've always dreamed of. As the final note faded away, the entire room fell silent. Then the entire venue erupted. With applause rising and falling in waves, everyone clapped so fervently that their hands turned red. I slowly rose to my feet, facing the audience and the live broadcast cameras around the world, lifted the hem of my dress, and bowed gracefully. This piece is dedicated to my once best friend, and to my fiancé. What's mine will always be mine. No matter how many imposters come, they can't take it away. My parents, sitting in the front row, had their eyes red with excitement, looking at me with pride. After the performance, I returned backstage. The dressing room was filled with flowers, but I'm still trying to calm my excited heart. At that moment, a figure pushed through the crowd and lunged at me like a madman. It turned out to be Griff GU. At this moment, his expensive suit was crumpled, his hair greasy, and his eyes bloodshot. Like a stray dog, he grabbed my arm with a terrifying strength. Zoe, why are you treating me like this? Everything I did was for our future, to be worthy of you, to gain your family's support, he roared, his spit spraying onto my face. I frowned in disgust and shook off his hand. The people around wanted to step in and pull him away, but I raised my hand to stop them. This act needed an ending. Seeing no reaction from me, Griff GU's eyes grew even wilder with madness. Suddenly, he put on a tender, affectionate expression and tried to move closer to me. Zoe, I love you so much. Everything I've done is because I love you too deeply. Zoe Sue is just a pawn. I haven't even touched her. Every time you meet me, you act like a wooden puppet. I only used her to test you. There's really nothing between us. I need the power of the GU family. I need to climb higher, so we can be together forever, and no one can tear us apart. He began to ramble incoherently, but the greedy, sickly look in his eyes couldn't be faked. I watched him quietly, as if observing a clownish figure. In my past life, my poor parents were likely bewitched by him as well. I too gradually fell under the beautiful facade he had crafted. Until this time, I escaped the peril high above at 30,000 feet. Only then did I realize how terribly wrong I had been. Looking at the twisted face before me, I spoke calmly. In my past life, I believed in the future you described with your words. So, on the plane to Paris, I was betrayed and killed. One Griff Goo's expression froze instantly. All color drained from his face, leaving only incomprehensible fear. I took a step forward, leaning in close so only he could hear my whisper. But this time, you might need to put in some effort to explain things clearly to the police. Why did the kidnappers on the plane realize they'd taken the wrong person after just one phone call, and how did they know so precisely which flight I would be on? I only told my parents about getting the performance qualification. And you, no, impossible. His whole body trembled, shaking like a sieve. As he stepped back step by step, finally collapsing to the ground, I didn't look at him again. Turning to walk out the door, not far away, my parents were waiting for me. The worry in their eyes vanished, replaced by overwhelming pride. I deleted all my social media accounts and declined every interview. In life, only the black and white piano keys remain. A few months later, at the Vienna Golden Hall, I won the gold medal in the international piano competition. On the flight back home, I flipped through the newspaper in my hands. In a corner of a social news section, a familiar profile was published. The high-altitude hijacking case has hidden truths. Mastermind arrested, suspected to be a crime of passion. In the photo, Griff Gu, with his hands cuffed, is being escorted away, his face ashen, disheveled and dejected. Not a trace remains of the former vigor and pride of the Gu family's eldest son. I folded the newspaper in half and casually tossed it into the trash can. Later, on a boring late night, I was scrolling through a live streaming app. In a group live stream with very few viewers, intermittent violin sounds could be heard. The playing was terrible, completely out of tune. The streamer awkwardly explained, "Our violin accompanist teacher isn't feeling well today. Please bear with us." The camera unintentionally sweeps across the corner. A young girl in cheap performance attire plays the violin backstage. Her face etched with deep-seated inferiority and numbness. She dares not lift her head, dares not show her face, but I recognized her. Listening to that familiar, halting rhythm, I suddenly smiled. That piece was the opening song she played when she replaced me. Now, it has become the background music of her eternal downfall. I turned off my phone, fingertips on the piano keys, slowly flowing out a bright and brilliant melody. In this lifetime, I personally buried my own hell and broke free from all shackles. Ding! The phone screen lit up, and a new message popped up, from an unknown number. Final payment received. The smile on my lips grew deeper. The sound of the piano soars, and the sunlight outside the window is just right.